is literally on a panel watching women twerk.
What is good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. This is the Arguments League Man Cave, and I am your host, Lance Single. Today, I just got through from reading one of the most incredible books I think I've ever read, and I would actually have to say, because the New Testament is included in the Bible, I'm willing to put it like kid brother status to that, and nothing else ever that I've read is this like relevant to everything that exists. I'm telling y'all, this has to be probably like every single theory that I had coming up as a kid and becoming an adult. Now I'm an older gentleman, and every fascination in mythology and wonder if this exists or that exists is all in this book. And as the title states, it's called the Kolbrin Bible. It's supposed to be a 3,600-year-old book. Dog. Let's just get into it. Let's just get into this book. The Kolbrin Bible. Y'all want to look something up about it? Let's see what the web say about it. Kolbrin Bible. Wikipedia. Let's see. Wiki articles for deletion. Kolbrin. They deleted the articles. Let's see what Rationale says. The Kolbrin, or the Kolbrin Bible, is a collection of texts alleged to be the translation of an ancient manuscript. UFO, Planet X, Nibiru, and 2012 apocalypse enthusiasts are fond of it. It was promoted in North America during 2005 on late-night radio programs. Paul Hughes of apologetics.com characterizes it as a weird glooming of Celtic spirituality, Egyptian spirituality, and Arthurian legend, catastrophe cults, to coin a phrase, comic books, and capitalism. The book is virtually unknown to any mainstream organization or medium. No hard copy or the purported original has been presented or is known to exist. Several attempts has been made to write an article about the book on Wikipedia, but every attempt has been deleted, as we just seen. It says the Kolbrin contains 11 books. The first 6 are said to have been subscribed by an Egyptian writer shortly after the Exodus and are collectively called the Bronze Book. The last 5 books are collectively called the Kol Book, or Khalidi, and are said to have been written by Celtic priests around the time the New Testament was being created. Let's see. These texts are claimed in the introduction to have been kept at Glastonbury Abbey, and the first selection transcribed to bronze sheets, allowing them to survive the fire of 1184, which the text publishers allege was set to destroy these and other heretical texts. So the publishers say, they set that fire in 1184 at Glastonbury to destroy this book and other heretical texts. Heretical. Unholy, we are bastard sons of your media culture. minds, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not what it is. Okay, let's continue. Well, anyway, let's get into the book. Oh, let me go continue with the claims. The texts are then alleged to have been transmitted through a series of owners, including one John Cody in the early 1300s, eventually being entrusted to a small group in England, and thence to Hope Trust, of which little is known. Finally, the texts are claimed to have ended up in the hands of the Chaldean Trust, formed in 1980. They claim the current version of the text was produced by an elderly man from Hope Trust around 1992, working from the original text. No old manuscripts or evidence of literary or scholarly references to it are available. In particular, the publishers not only have no manuscripts to exhibit, but no ownership province other than a vague allusion to an unnamed religious group and a fictional medieval cult called the Chaldeans, playing on the name of the real obscure Celtic Christian monks, the Chaldees. The foreword states that the text has been adequately validated and endorsed by higher authorities without naming them. The introduction then adds, undoubtedly, additional material has been incorporated with good intent to fill gaps and elaborate on original, and further that no claim is made regarding historical accuracy, but that an original is unimportant. Yo, I'm not even gonna front. After reading this book, if a man gave me this book today and said he wrote this book with the type of information and the studies that I've already done myself, the type of information that's in this book, I would think the dude was connected with the Most High, connected with Almighty God, some kind of way. I'm not even gonna lie to you. With the stuff that's in this book, I mean, I can't even see anyone discounting this book, bro. Like, even, I'm telling you, even if a dude came up to me today, regular old black guy, walk up to me like, yo, man, I'm just giving you this. The Most High said, give it to you, read it, teach it to the people. I'm gonna take the book, I'm gonna read it, and I'm gonna call that nigga like, yo, dog, you connected to the Most High. This came out of your head. Yo, let's get into the book. Let's get into the book, bro. Kolbrin Bible. Let's get past the citation system and the introduction and all of that, because we kind of got the introduction when I read the Rational Wiki. The Book of Creation. The name which is uttered cannot be that of this great being who remains nameless, is the beginning and the end, beyond time, beyond the reach of mortals, and we in our simplicity call it God. That right there, that opening was dope within itself. Look at that. The name which is uttered cannot be that of this great being who, remaining nameless, so that is the beginning and the end, beyond time, beyond the reach of mortals, and we in our simplicity call it God. All right, this is Creation 1, chapter 1, verse 1. Mortal knowledge, let me enlarge it so I can sit back. Y'all see that? All right. Mortal knowledge is circumscribed by mortal ignorance, and mortal comprehension is circumscribed by spiritual reality. It is unwise for a mortal man to attempt the understanding of that which is beyond his conception, for there lies the road to disbelief and madness. That's true. That's sort of like the wineskin parable. Because if a new wineskin, if old wineskin takes in new wine, the wine will ferment and cause the wine to the skin to expand. So if it's already expanded and a new wine get in there and ferment and build up gas and pressure, then that's gonna bust. So this is basically saying the same thing. So yet man is man, and ever fated to reach out beyond himself, striving to attain things which always elude his grasp. So in his frustration, he replaces the dimly seen incomprehensible to things within his understanding. If these things but poorly reflect reality, then it is not the reflection of reality. Distorted through it may be of greater value than no reflection at all. If these things but poorly reflect reality, then is not the reflection of reality. Distorted through it may be of greater value than no reflection of all at all. There are no beginnings on earth, for here all is effect, the ultimate cause being elsewhere. For who among men can say which came first, the seed or the plant? Yet in truth it is neither. For something neither seed nor plant proceed both, and that thing was also preceded by something else. So nothing comes from nothing. And that's pretty deep, because it's saying that the seed or the plant and neither came before, which because they come from something, they come from, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Mass breaks down to matter. Matter breaks down to particles, atoms and stuff like that. Material, mass, material, atoms. Then it breaks down even further. So that's true. I mean, it's pretty profound, actually. For who among men can say which came first, the seed or the plant? Yet in truth it is neither. For something neither seed nor plant proceed both, and that thing was also preceded by something else. Always there are ancestors back to the beginning, and back beyond that there is only the Most High. This, it says God, but I mean, I know it's the Most High, the El-Elyon. This then is how things were told in the great book of the Sons of Fire. Can't wait to get to that. Before the beginning, there was only one consciousness, that of the Eternal One, whose nature cannot be expressed in words. It was the one soul spirit, the self-generator, which cannot diminish, the unknown, unknowable one, broadeningly solitary in profound, pregnant silence. The name which is uttered cannot be that of this great being who, remaining nameless, is the beginning and the end beyond time, beyond the reach of mortals, and we in our simplicity call it God. He who preceded all existed alone in his strange abode of uncreated light, which remains ever undistinguishable, and no understandable eye can ever behold it. The pulsating draughts of the eternal life light in his keeping were not yet loosed. He knew himself alone. He was contrasted, unable to manifest in nothingness, for all within his being was unexpressed potential. The great circles of eternity were yet to be spun out, to be thrown forth as the endless ages of existence in substance. They were to begin with God and return to him completed in infinite variety and expression. Earth was not yet in existence. There were no winds with the sky above them. High mountains were not raised, nor was the great river in its place. All was formless, without movement, calm, silent, void, and dark. No name had been named, and no destinies foreshadowed. Eternal rest is intolerable, and unmanifested potential is frustration. In the solitude of timeless came divine loneliness, and from this arose the desire to create, and that he might know and express himself, and this generated the love of God. He took thought and brought it into being within himself, the universal womb of creation, containing the everlasting essence of slumbering spirit. The essence was quickened by the ripple of the mind of God, and a creative thought was projected. This generated power, which produced light, and this formed a substance. Hmm. Hmm. This essence was quickened by a ripple from the mind of God, and a creative thought was projected. This generated power, which produced light. Light. So I don't know if it's physical light, but it just came to mind to me that when electrons are agitated, the general expression of that action is production of energy, light. I don't know if that correlates, but it just seemed to, in the quick thought, it just seemed to hit me. All right. This generated power which produced light, and this formed a substance like onto a mist of invisible dust. It divided into two forms of energy through being impregnated with the Spirit of God, and quickening the chaos of the void within the universal womb became spun into whirlpools of substance. From this activity, as sparks from a fire, came an infinite variety of spirit minds, each having a creative powers within itself. The activating word was spoken, it echoes, vibrates still, and there was a string movement which caused instability. A command was given, and this became the everlasting law. Henceforth, activity was controlled in harmonious rhythm, and the initial inertia was overcome. Talking about vibrations and talking about cymatics and all of that type of stuff, man. Let me show y'all something right quick. How a vibration can create. It can shape water. It can form. It has a different reaction to different elements. But let me just show y'all a different real quick. Hey yo, let me hit y'all with this right quick first. Let's get back to it. Y'all see how these vibrations, these frequencies can cause certain shapes? Oh shoot. Let me check and see. Hold on right quick. Let's pause for the cause. Pause for the cause right quick. Let's see what it's looking like. I ain't even checked. Been around this whole mug and didn't even check. See if it worked out. Oh shit, you can't hear me. Dang, I'm glad I checked, bro. I'm about to kick off a whole piece with no sound. See something. Let me see. So, let me turn this mic down. Mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. Okay, I'm there. Sure. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. I had to make sure we was on point. Everything is good. Let's get back to the reading of the book. Okay. We'll start from here. Creation, chapter 1, verse 10. The activating word was spoken. Its echoes vibrate still, and there was a striving movement which caused instability. A command was given, and this became the everlasting law. Henceforth, activity was controlled in harmonious rhythms, and the initial inertia was overcome. The law divided the materializing chaos from God, and then established the boundaries of the eternal spheres. Established the boundaries of the eternal spheres. Time no longer slept on the bosom of God, for now there was change, where before all had been unchanging, and change is time. Now within the universal womb was heat, substance, and life, and encompassing it was the word, which is the law. It's pretty deep. Time is no longer slept on the bosom of God, for now there was change, where before all had been unchanging, and change is time. Now within the universal womb was heat, substance, and life, and encompassing it was the word, and which is the law. The command was given, let the smallest of things form the greatest, and that which lives but a flash from everlastingness. Let the smallest thing form the greatest, and that which lives but a flash form everlastingness. 3,600 years. Let the smallest things form the greatest. Yeah. Thus, the universe came into being on a condensation of God's thought. And as it did so, it obscured him from all enclosed within his solidifying creation. So, God creating creation concealed him. Thus, the universe came into being on the condensation of God's thought. And as it did so, it obscured him from all enclosed within his solidifying creation. Henceforth, God was hiding, for he has always remained dimly reflected in his creation. He became veiled from all that came forth from him. Creation does not explain itself under the law. It cannot do so. Its secrets have to be unraveled by the created. There we go. That's what we're doing. We unraveling secrets. It said creation does not explain itself under the law. It cannot do so. Its secrets have to be unraveled by the created. Yes, sir. That's what we're doing. All things are by nature finite. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. An unaccomplishable purpose would be eternal frustration, and therefore, the universe being created purposefully, it must have an objective. If it ended without anything else following, then God existing must slumber indifferent to its activities. Said, if it ended without anything else following, if the world ended without nothing that come after it, then the God existing must slumber indifferent to its activity. So yeah, it's like against God for nothing to come after it, because this is why he created things, because he is, I mean, according to this, we're going to only stick to this narrative. I'm not going to mix the two other than the obvious things, such as the small things shall create the great things, or the small things shall come from or make the greatest things. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like obvious. Yeah, atoms. Beyond that, subatomic particles smaller than atoms, and it's something smaller than that. You know what I'm saying? And it might go black. It might be nothing to have to do with light. So we don't know. But yeah, something small. The very smallest things create the greatest things. That's crazy, right? It said, all things are by nature finite. They have a beginning, a middle, and end. An unaccomplishable purpose would be eternal frustration for it. So to be here for no reason would be like, hell, like eternal frustration. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's like, there's nothing to do. Like, just imagine, just here for nothing. You know what I'm saying? And this is actually, that's actually an awesome thought. That's a good point. If nothing comes after this, then, what's the reason? What's the purpose? All right. And an unaccomplishable purpose would be an eternal frustration. And therefore, the universe being created purposefully, it must have an objective. If it ended without anything else following, then the God existing must slumber indifferent to its activities. But he has made it a living work of greatness operating under the changeless law. The creating word had been spoken. Now there was another command, and the power going forth smote the sun so its face was lit, and it shone with a great radiance, pouring warmth and light upon its sister earth. Henceforth, she would live within the protection of her brother's household, rejoicing in the benevolence and strength. The waters upon the bosom of the earth were gathered together, and dry land appeared. When the covering of water was rolled back, the body of the earth was unstable, damp, and yielding. The face of the sun shone down kindly upon his sister, and the dry land of her body became very hard. Humidity and dampness were taken away. He gave her a garment of fleece and a veil of fine linen, that she might clothe her body with modesty. So he put life on this mug, put some grass and shit. Said, from the great womb has sprung the spirit of life, and it was rampant in the heavens. It gazed upon earth and saw her fairness, was filled with desire, and came out of a heavenly space to possess her. It came not peacefully as a lover, but tempestuous as a ravager. It breathed, howled along her corridors, and raged among her mountaintops, but it did not discover the dwelling place of her spirit. She had withdrawn as a woman withdraws before force, for modesty must not be outraged in submission. Let's kind of read like some Plato type stuff. Let me get some water right quick, man. Let's kind of read like some Plato type stuff. Right back. I'm enjoying the read so far, dog. I really do. I mean, I already read it, so it's kind of anticipating the good parts, bro. Like, I can't wait to get to the certain parts, bro. Oh my god. Back to the book. How long is it taking? Let me see something, y'all. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm good. Okay, now I know how to do this. I got it now. Okay. Okay. Creation, chapter 1, verse 17. The son saw her perplexity, and he wrestled with the spirit of life and overcame it. When it was subdued and the primal struggle had ceased, it was delivered by the son to his sister. It was chastened and quieted, and the silence brought it over earth's waters. She was stirred in response. Silence, so that's sort of like, okay, the spirit, okay, got you. Say she was stirred in response. Mud eggs of life potentially were formed in swamps at the meeting places of land and two waters. The sun gave quickening heat, and life crawled forth from the bosom of the earth. The land thus brought forth the male, and dark water mist female. Creation chapter 1 verse 18. The land thus brought forth the male, and the dark water midst the female, and they united and multiplied. The first brought forth the second, and the two produced the third. Earth was no longer virgin, and the spirit of life grew old and departed. Earth was left garbed in the matron's mantle of green. Herb covered the face of the land. Herbage covered the face of the land. Okay. Earth was left garbed in the matron's mantle of green. Herbage covered the face of the land. The waters brought forth fishes and creatures which move about and twist themselves and wriggle in the waters. The serpents and the beasts of terrible aspect, which were of yore, and reptiles which crept and crawled. What is yore? Let's look that up. Which of yore? Of a long ago, or of former times. Got you. So the waters brought forth fishes and creatures which move about and twist themselves and wiggle in the waters. The serpents and the beasts of terrible aspect, which were of yore, and the reptiles which creep and crawl. There were tall walking things and dragons in hideous form, clothed with terror, whose great bones may still be seen. 3,600 years old. I'm talking about, forget 3,600 years old. Let's just go back to the 2nd century BC. This is from the 2nd century BC. All right, according to the narrative. According to the narrative. All right. And I remember Esdras, he wrote a lot of books. I ain't saying it was from, I'm saying this obviously is a copy from somewhere, compilement of books from somewhere. But let's get back into it. Creation, chapter 1, verse 20. Then came forth from the womb of the earth all the beasts of the field and forest, all the creatures of creation having blood in their bodies, and it was complete. Beasts roamed the dry land, and fishes swarmed the seas. There were birds in the skies and worms within the soil. There were great land masses and high mountains, wide barren places and heavying waters. Fertile greenness covered the land, and abundant life swarmed in the seas. For now earth throbbed with energy of life. Metals lay hidden in her rocks, and precious stones within the soil. Gold and silver were scattered and secreted. There was copper for tools, and forests of timber. There were swamps of reed and stones for every purpose. Everything was prepared, everything was ready, and now earth awaited a coming of man. Chapter 2, the birth of man. The love of God penetrated the third veil and became the seed of souls within the soul of Seth. The body of man, God made of water and the things of earth, breathing into him the spirit of life, that he might live. But man, when young, lived only to eat and drink and to fornicate, for being conscious only of the earth, he knew only earthly things and earthly ways. Now, the earth spirit of God moved over the face of the earth, but was not of the earth. It held all things and was in all things, but on earth could not be apart from anything. Without substance, it was awake, but entering substance, it slept. Now the Spirit of God moved over the face of earth, but was not of earth. Got you? That's true. It held all things and was in all things, but on earth could not be apart from anything. That's true. Without substance, it was awake, but entering substance, it slept. Considering that which was told by the servants of Eban, of heavenmen, who once wandered the earth, he had no earthly substance and could not grasp its fruits, for he had no hands. He could not drink its waters, for he had no mouth, nor could he feel the cool winds upon his skin. They tell how the ape tribe, Silak, led by heaven man, perished by flames before the valley of Lod. Only one she-ape reaching the cave heights above. When heaven man was reborn of the she-ape in the cavern of woe, could he taste the fruits of the earth and drink of her waters and feel the coolness of her winds? Did he not find life good? It is not all a tale of the courtyard. Man, created from earthly substance alone, could not know the things not of earth, nor could spirit alone subdue him. Had man not been created, who would have known God's wisdom and power? As the spirit fills the body of man, so does God fill his creation. As the spirit fills the body of man, so does God fills his creation. Therefore, it was that God saw something had to be done. Therefore, it was that God saw something had to be which joined earth and spirit and was both. In his wisdom and by the creative impulse which governs the earth, he prepared a body for man. And for the body of man is wholly of earth. Behold, the great day came when spirit, which is God, was joined with the beast, which is earth. Then earth withered in the labor of her travail. Her mountains rocked back and forth, and her seas heaved up and down. Earth groaned in her lands and shrieked in her winds. She cried in the rivers and wept in her storms. So man was born up of upheaval and strife. He came wretchedly and tumultuously, and the offspring of distraught earth. The offspring of a distraught earth. All was in discord. Snow fell in the hot wasteland. Ice covered the fertile plains. The forest became seas. Where once it was hot, now it was cold, and there were no rain, had ever fallen. Now there were floods. So man came forth, man the child of calamity, man the inheritor of a creative struggle, man the battleground of extremes. Wow. So, according to this, it seems as though God created a body from earth and spirit, himself and the earth. The first one obviously was of earth, and it was like bold. It was just like all about earthly things, all about pleasure. And it had no understanding of the spiritual things because it was made wholly of earth, according to this. So God created a being that was of earth and spirit. See, because himself alone was spirit, and it was nothing else. So he created these things in a sense. I mean, not in a sense. He created these things to manifest himself. And he created man as a divide, as a medium or a perfect mix of spirit and earth. So God saw man, the offering of earth to her Lord, the offering of earth. God saw man, hold on. Let's get back to this, I'm sorry. So man was born, all right, I'll go from there. Creation, verse 2, creation chapter 2, verse 8. So man was born of upheaval and strife. He came wretchedly and tumultuously, the offspring of a distraught earth. All was in discord. Snow fell in the hot wastelands. Ice covered the fertile plains. The forest became seas. Where once it was hot, now it was cold. And where no rain hath ever fallen, now there were floods. So man came forth, man the child of calamity, man the inheritor of creative struggle, man the battleground of extremes. That's what's up. I get it. Earth nurtured man with cautious affection, weaning him in the recess of her body. Then, when he was grown sufficiently to be lifted so he walked in the uprightness of God, she took him and raised him above all other creatures. She led him even into the presence of God, and she laid him on his great altar. A man imperfect of earthly limitations, a thing unfinished, ungainly, and unlearned, but proudly was he presented to earth's creator. Not her firstborn was man, the son of earth, the grandchild of God, man the heir of tribulation and the pupil of affliction. Pretty deep. This like some Shakespeare type shit, bro. Hey, this like some Shakespeare, like I told y'all, like some Plato type shit. I mean, and then, I mean, of course it's translated. This like, I didn't even show y'all how many editions they actually went through. They went all the way from Egyptian to Greek to, you know, Syria. It went through a couple of editions, and the books were separated. They weren't together until like a couple of editions prior to this one. It says, this book is the Egyptian book called the Creation. This is the one that's formed or written or written by the Egyptian priests. The other one is called the Cole book, Coel book of the Celtics. And if y'all know any history, you know the original Celtics are Israelites that descend from Zara Judah, the twin, the crimson string twin. So the Celtics, this is why I'm on this, because I know who the Celtics are. The Celtics are Israelites. You feel what I'm saying? And these particular Celtics, they call them Druids. It can get heavy. Let's get back into this. All right. So God saw man the offering of earth to her Lord, unconscious on a high altar, a sacrifice to him, and a dedication to the spirit of faith. Then from out of the unfathomable heights and from beyond the impenetrable veil, God came down above the altar, and he breathed into the man the breath of eternal life. Into his sleeping body, God planted a fragment of himself, the seed of a soul and the spark of divinity. And man, the mortal, became man, the heir of God and the inheritor of immortality. Henceforth, he would have dominion over God's earthly estate, but he also had to unravel the circles of eternity. And his destiny was to be everlasting seeking and striving. Circles of eternity. You know what I think about when I see the circles of eternity? What's that? I forgot how that's said. Let's see something. No, that won't be it. Dang, I forgot how you say that. I don't want to break my I don't want to break this to get in the other part. Let me see something. So, God's earthly estate. So man inherited the dominion over God's earthly estate. And that's what it says in the scripture. It says that God gave man, I think in the book of Psalms, he gave man the earth. And heaven is for himself, or something like that. Okay, Creation chapter 2 verse 12. Man slept, but God opened the great eye within him, and man saw a vision of unsurpassed glory. Man slept, but God opened the great eye within him, and man saw a vision of unsurpassed glory. He heard the voice of God saying, "O man, in your hand is now placed the tablet of your inheritance, and my seal is upon it. Now that all your desire within your hearts may be yours. But first it is necessary that you be taught its value. Behold, the earth is filled with things of usefulness. They are prepared to your hand for a purpose, but a task is upon you to seek them out and learn their use. This is the tuition for the management of your inheritance." Woo! That's heavy. Like I said, man, it don't even matter if this was 3,000 years, 3,600 years old. It don't matter. Like, that piece, look at that, listen to what it said. Behold, the earth is filled with things of usefulness. They are prepared to your hand for a purpose, but the task is upon you to seek them out and learn their use. This is the tuition for your management of your inheritance. Whoa, that's smoking. I love it. What you need to be good. It said, what you know to be good, seek for it. Seek for, and it shall be found. What you know to be good, seek for, and it shall be found. Okay? You may plumb the seas and pluck the stars. You may live in an everlasting glory and a savior eternal delights, and savor eternal delights. It says, dang, it's just like everything is yours. Like whatever you want to do, whatever you want. What you know to be good, seek for, and it shall be found. Dang, like that's what I was thinking like not too long ago. Like when you have a dream, and you dream about something and then you create it, right? Like when I say a dream, not like a dream, but like you have a desire to create something, and whatever it is, it's already things here on earth to make it. All you had to do is desire it. Like whatever you want to make, like you think of something, all you had to do is think of something. It never existed. Write it down, give it a name, and everything that it takes to generate that thing to manifest it is already gonna be here, and you're gonna find it, and you're gonna manifest it. And that's just generally what this is saying. What you know to be good, seek for it, and it shall be found. You may plumb the seas and pluck the stars. You may live in everlasting glory and savor eternal delights above and below. And all about, there is nothing beyond your reach, all with one exception in yours to attain. Then God laid his hand upon the man, saying, now you are even as I, except you sleep there enclosed in matter and in the kingdoms of illusion, while I dwell here in the freedom of reality and truth. It is not for me to come down to you, but for you to reach out to me. Hallelujah. Woo. Dang. I'm I'm thinking about the Most High, and whether these is his words or not, that's the truth. You know what I'm saying? That's hard in the mud. He said it's nothing beyond your reach, with the exception that you go get it. Man, that's powerful as hell. It's nothing beyond your reach. The only exception is you have to go get it. Then God laid his hand upon man, saying, now you are even as I, except you sleep there enclosed in matter, in the kingdom of illusions. I dwell here in the freedom of reality and truth. It is not for me to come down to you, but for you to reach out to me. Our unborn friends, whatever your circumstances of life, you are the children of the past and heirs of those who have lived and died. We trust you have no cause of reproach, those who once held stewardship over your estate. But whatever you think of the heritage, you cannot put it aside, any more than you can refuse that man then saw a vision of glory encompassing even the spheres of splendor. Unabound wisdom filled his heart, and he beheld beauty in perfection. The ultimates of truth and justice were unveiled before him. He became one with the profound peace of eternity and knew the joys of unceasing gladness. Dang. That's heaven right there. No war, no worrying about going to work, no, just find out. This is seek out what life is about. Create, whatever you want to, you know what I'm saying? And I imagine it's a balance. It has to be some type of, well, let's finish reading, because I'm thinking, yes, we can reach and we can find out and but I ain't really read nothing about, well, he said keep the law. Said keep the law. Okay. So you can do what you want. Unbounded wisdom filled his heart, and he beheld beauty and perfection. The ultimates of truth and justice were unveiled before him. He became one with the profound peace of eternity and knew the joys of unceasing gladness. The eternal ages of time rolled as a scroll before his eyes, and he saw written thereon all that was to become and occur. The eternal ages of time unrolled on a scroll before his eyes, and he saw written thereon all that was to become and occur. And the great vaults of heaven were opened up unto him, and he saw the everlasting fires and the unconsumable powers that strove therein. He felt within himself the striving of inexpressible love and unlimited design of grandeur, filled his thoughts. Unlimited designs of grandeur filled his thoughts. His spirit ranged unhampered through all the spheres of existence. He was then even as God himself, and he knew the secret of the 7 spheres within the 3 spheres. Sound like some chakra shit. Hold on. How many chakra spheres is it? How many chakra spheres are there? No. Come on. How many chakra spheres are there? Ain't nothing about that. What's going on? How you spell chakra? S-H-A-K-R-A. Well, that's 12, so it's probably not talking about that. But it did say a tree. It says a tree. Great vault, unconsumable powers, through all the spheres. It says, he felt within himself the stirring of inexpressible love, and unlimited designs of grandeur filled his thoughts. Nigga want to get out here and make, I want to make something. I want to do something. His spirit ranged unhampered through all the spheres of existence. He was then even as God himself, and he knew the secret of the 7 spheres within the 3 spheres. Then God lifted his hand from man, and man was alone. The great vision departed, and he awoke. Only a dim and elusive recollection, no more than a shadow of a dream, remained. But deep within the sleeping soul, there was a spark of remembrance, and it generated within man a restless longing, he knew not what. Henceforth, man was destined to wander discontented, seeking something he felt he knew, but could not see, something which continually eluded him, perpetually goaded him, and forever tantalized him. Deep within himself, man knew something greater than himself was always with him and part of him, spurring him on to greater deeds, greater thoughts, greater aspirations. It was something out beyond himself, scarcely realized and never found, something which told him that the radiance seen on the horizon but dimly reflected the hidden glory beyond it. Dang. Something told him that the sun was a dim reflection of the glory behind it. Everything, basically, probably. Man awoke, and the revelation and vision gone. Only the grim reality of Earth's untamed vast surrounded him. But when he arose and stepped down onto the bosom of his mother Earth, he was undaunted by the great powers that beset him and by the magnitude of the task ahead. Within his heart, he knew destiny lay upon the squalor of his environment. He stepped out nobly and gladly accepting the challenge. He was now a new man. He was different. He looked above and saw glory in the heavens. He saw beauty about him, and he knew goodness and things not of the earth. The vision of eternal values arose before his inner eye. His spirit was responding to its environment. Man was now man, truly man. Chapter 19. The nature of man on earth was formed after the nature of things in heaven. And man had all things contained as potential within himself, except divine life. But he was as yet an untrained, undisciplined child, still nurtured simply upon the comforting bosom of earth. Man grew in stature, but earth was not indulgent, for she disciplined him firmly. She was ever strict and unyielding, chastening him often with blasts of despair. It was indeed the upbringing of one destined for greatness. He was made to suffer cold, that he might learn to clothe himself, sent in the bearing places, that his limbs should be strengthened, and into forests, that his eyes should be keen, and his heart strong. He was perplexed with difficult problems and set tasks of unraveling the illusions of nature. He was beset with hardship and every description. He was tested with frustrations and tempered with allurements. Never did earth relax the vigilance of her supervision. That's deep, bro. I like that. Like that. Say put him in a forest so he can see better. Put him in a cold so he learned to put some clothes on. Like, that's dope. All right. The child was raised sternly, for he needed the fortitude, courage, and cunning of a man to fit him for the task ahead. He grew wily and weary in the hunt. He became adaptable, able to cope with any untoward happening. Overcoming the bewilderment of early days, he found explanations for the perplexities of his surroundings. It says, overcoming the bewilderments of the earlier days, he found explanations of the perplexities of his surroundings. Yet the struggle for knowledge, the need for adaptation, and the effort to survive were never relaxed. The earth child was well trained and disciplined. He was never unduly mollycoddled. The earth child was well trained and disciplined. He was never unduly mollycoddled. He cried for bread and went hungry. He shivered and was cast out. He was sick and driven into the forest, weary, and he was lashed with storms thirstily. He found the waters dried. When weak, his burden was increased, and in the midst of rejoicing, he was struck down with sorrow. In the moments of his weakness, he cried enough and doubted his destiny, but always something fortified and encouraged him. The earthling never fortified his godlikeness. The earthling never fortified his godlikeness. In moment of weakness, he cried enough and doubted his destiny, but always something fortified and encouraged him. The earthling never fortified his godlikeness. That's crazy, bro. That's like sounding personal, like giving niggas an encouragement. That's crazy. For man was man, He was not cowed, nor his spirit broken. A wise God knew his limitations. As it is written in the wisdom of men, over chastisement is bad as no chastisement, all at all. It is as it is written in the wisdom of men, over chastisement is as bad as no chastisement at all. But man was rarely chastised. He was tried, tested, and challenged. He was led, prodded, and urged, yet nothing was done unnecessarily. The seemingly imperfections of earth, the hazards and inequalities of life, the cruelty, harshness of apparent indifferences to suffering and affliction are not what they seem. As it is, earth is perfect for its purpose. It is ignorance of that purpose which makes it appear imperfect. This bug is a training ground, bro. Earth is a training ground, bro. It's to get you right. It's to get you right. To put you through, you know what I'm saying, afflictions to toughen you and harshness. And if you perceive it like you should, you know what I'm saying? This is really, really nice. It is ignorance of that purpose which makes it appear imperfect. Where is there a wiser father than the Spirit of God, or a better mother than earth? What man is now he owes to these? What man is now he owes to these? May he learn to be duly grateful. Above all, let him never forget the lessons learned in his upbringing. Chapter 3, Destruction and Recreation. Resets, do-overs, you know what I'm saying? Like, watch this. I told y'all. You know who I'm talking to. You know what the hell is a reset? What that means? Show me, prove it. This 3,000-year-old book. Watch this. It is known, and the story comes down from ancient times, that there was not one creation, but two. So that's in the scripture, actually. That's actually in the Bible. It don't say it, but it alludes to it. You know what I'm saying? Replenish means to go out and make like it was, meaning it's not like it was. Go do it. Go put it right. Let me get into it. It is known, and the story comes down from the ancient times, that there was one creation, there was not one creation, but two, a creation and a recreation. It is a fact and known to the wise that earth was utterly destroyed once, then reborn on a second wheel of creation. At the time of the great destruction of earth, God caused a dragon from out of heaven to come and encompass her about. The dragon was frightened to behold. It lashed its tail, it breathed out fire and hot coals, and the great catastrophe was afflicted upon mankind. The body of the dragon was wreathed in a cold, bright light, and beneath on the belly was a ruddy hued glow, while behind it trailed a flowing tail of smoke. It spewed out cinders of hot stones, and it breathed a foul and stenchful poisoning the nostrils of men. Its passage caused a great thunderings and lightnings to rend the thick darkened sky, all heaven and earth being made hot. The seas were loosened from their cradles and rose up, pouring across the land. There was an awful shrilling, trumpeting, and outpowered even the howling of unleashed winds. So there was a shrilling trumpeting which outpowered even the howling of the unleashed winds. Wow, that sounds scary. So this dragon sounds like comet or something. Hey, yo, this dragon sounds like a comet. Because it says, the dragon was frightful to behold. It lashed its tail. It breathed out fire and hot coals, and a great catastrophe. It breathed out hot coals and fire. A great catastrophe was afflicted upon mankind. The body of the dragon was wreathed in a cold, bright light, and beneath on the belly was a ruddy hued glow, while behind it trailed a flowing tail of smoke. It spewed out cinders of hot stone, and its breath was foul and stenchful, poisoning the nostrils of men. Its passage caused a great thundering and lightnings to rend the thick darkened sky. All heaven and earth being made hot, the seas were loosened from their cradles and rose up, pouring across the land. So the seas were threw about and rose up and put on the land. It says there was an awful shrilling trumpeting. I don't know, like I ain't gonna do that shit, but I can see it. I can see it though. I can see it. I can hear it in my mind. I can hear it. Just over the winds, just scared. This shit just fucked up. It said which outpoured even the howling of the unleashed winds. Men stricken with terror went mad at the awful sight in the heavens. I can see that. Like, what the fuck? Motherfuckers trying to get water and get all type of shit and try to get their shit together. Let's see. And this is an earlier mankind, so this is a prior Earth period, before the last destruction or prior destruction. It says, men stricken with terror went mad at the awful sight in the heavens. They were loose from their senses and dashed about, crazed, not knowing what they did. The breath was sucked from their bodies, and they were burnt with a strange ash. Damn. Then it passed, leaving earth unwrapped within a dark and glowing mantle, which was ruddily lit and up inside. The bowels of the earth were torn open into great, withering upheavals, and a howling whirlwind rent the mountains apart. The wrath of the sky monster was loose in the heavens. It lashed about in flaming fury, roaring like 1,000 thunders. It poured down fiery destruction amid a wither of thick black blood. What? It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It says the rat. This is the last. This is a recording, a documentation of a prior destruction of the earth. It says the earth. Hold on. It says it lashed about in flaming fury, roaring like 1,000 thunders. It poured down fiery destruction amid a wither of dark black blood. So awesome was the fearfully expected thing that the memory mercifully departed from man. His thoughts were smothered under a cloud of forgetfulness. Dang. So basically, shit was so fucked up. It was so messed up that Moses tried to forget that it ever happened. Wow. It says, is that what it said? It says, the wrath of the sky monster was loosed in the heavens. It lashed about in flaming fury, roaring like 1,000 thunders. It poured down fiery destruction amid a welter of thick black blood. So awesome was the fearful aspected thing that the memory mercifully departed from man. His thoughts were smothered under a cloud of forgetfulness. That's why that's that's why they don't know that it happened before today. That's why it's not in the memory of man today. That's why. It was so horrible that they tried to forget that it ever happened. They didn't even mention it to nobody. They didn't even put it in the history books. But you can see it. You can clearly see all over the world that it was judgment. Some type of judgment. Melted brick, you know what I'm saying? Stones toppled over, and they want to put it on people not being in the land, and it just got barren and wasted, and just not being there. The wind broke these. Man, is you crazy, bro? When people not in the land, green stuff usually come back. You know what I'm saying? And ain't nobody there using up all of the resources and stuff like that. And this is very interesting, to say the least. It says the earth vomited forth great gusts of foul breath from awful mouths opening up in the midst of the land. Perfect circles just being discovered all over the earth. Whole mile-long circles just forming, just dropping up from under people. Whole towns being taken. Could that be what these long? I don't know, man. This is deep, bro. The evil breath bit at the throat before it drove men mad and killed them. So something came out of the earth that poisoned man. Those who did not die in this manner were smothered under a cloud of red dust and ash, or were swallowed by the yawning mouth of earth, crushed beneath crashing rocks. Wow. The first sky monster was joined by another, which swallowed the tail of the one going before. But the two could not be seen at once. The sky monsters reigned and raged above the earth, doing battle to possess it. But the many-bladed sword of God cut them in pieces, and their falling bodies enlarged the land and the sea. Wow. It said, in this manner, the first earth was destroyed by calamity descending from out of the skies. The vaults of heaven had opened to bring forth monsters more fearsome than any that ever haunted the uneasy dreams of men. Men and their dwelling places were gone. Only sky boulders and red earth remained where once they were. But amidst all the desolation, a few survive. For man is not easily destroyed. They crept out from caves. They crept out from caves and came down from the mountainsides. Their eyes were wide and their limbs trembled. Their bodies shook and their tongues lacked control. Their faces were twisted and the skin hung loosely on their bones. They were as maddened wild beasts driven into an enclosure before the flames. They knew no law, being deprived of all wisdom they once had, and those who had guided them were gone. Oh, wild man. Oh, wait, you said men and their dwelling places were gone. Only sky boulders and red earth remained where once they were. But amidst all the desolation, a few survived, for man is not easily destroyed. They crept out from caves and came down from the mountainside. Their eyes were wide and their limbs trembled, and their bodies shook, and their tongues lacked control, and their faces twisted, and their skin hung loose on their bones. They were as maddened wild beasts driven into an enclosure before flames. They knew no law, being deprived of all the wisdom they had once had, and those who had guided them were gone. The earth, so they was in the caves for a long ass time, bro. They knew no law. They no longer knew the law, and this is very, y'all gotta say, this is very thought-provoking. If this is 3,600 years old, this is very thought-provoking, man. Says, they were as maddened wild beasts driven into an enclosure before flames. They knew no law, being deprived of all wisdom they once had, and those who had guided them were gone. The earth, only true altar of God, had offered up a sacrifice of life and a sorrow to atone for the sins of mankind. Man had not sinned indeed, but in the things he had failed to do. Man suffered not only for what he does, but what he fails to do. He is not chastised for making mistakes, but for failing to recognize and rectify them. Then the great canopy of dust and cloud which encompassed the earth, enshrouding it in a heavy darkness, was pierced by a ruddy light, and the canopy swept down by the great cloud bursts and raging storm waters. Cool moon tears were shedded for the distress of earth and woes of men. So this is the first earth. When the light of the sun pierced the earth's shroud, bathing the land in its revitalizing glory, the earth again knew night and day, for there were now times of light and times of darkness. The smothering canopy rolled away, and the vaults of heaven became visible to man. The foul air was purified, and the new air clothed the reborn earth, shielding her from the dark, hostile void of heaven. Dang. How long was they in the caves, bro? How long was they even forgot that this had happened? They ain't had no law no more. Like what? It said the rainstorm ceased to beat upon the face of, hold on. The foul air was purified, and new air clothed the reborn earth, shielding her from the dark, hostile void of heaven. Shielding her. New air clothed and the reborn earth, shielding her from the dark, hostile void of heaven. The rainstorm ceased to beat upon the faces of the land, and the waters stilled their turmoil. Earthquakes no longer tore the earth open, nor was it burned and buried by hot rocks. The land masses were reestablished in stability and solidity, standing firm in the midst of the surrounding waters. The oceans fell back to their assigned places, and the land stood steady upon its foundation. The oceans fell back to their assigned places, and the land stood steady upon its foundations. The sun shone upon land and sea, and life was renewed upon the face of the earth. Rain fell gently once more, and clouds of fleece floated across the day's sky. The waters were purified, and sediment sank, and life increased in abundance. Life was renewed, but it was different. Man survived, and he was not the same. Sorry, y'all. Man found the new earth. Hold on. The waters were purified, the sediment sank, and life increased in abundance. Life was renewed, but it was different. Man survived, but he was not the same. The sun was not as it had been, and a moon had been taken away. It was more than one moon. What? It says the sun was not as it had been, and a moon had been taken away. Man stood in the midst of renewal and regeneration. He looked up into heavens above in fear for awful powers of destruction lurking there. Henceforth, the placid skies will hold a terrifying secret. Wow, the placid skies will hold a Whoa, boy, that's why we got a little hidden fear about something coming from the sky. Aliens, God, something. And we all, everybody, like we got that hidden fear that something is coming from the sky. Mind you, listen, the book is 3,000 years old, dog. Okay? The book is 3,000 years old. They felt like this back then. Says, he looked up into heavens above in fear for the awful powers of destruction lurking there. Henceforth, the placid skies will hold a terrifying secret. Man found the new earth firm in the heavens fixed. He rejoiced, but also feared, for he lived in dread that the heavens would again bring forth monsters and crash about him. Wow. Monsters. What are these monsters? And coming out of the sky, are they flying? Do they have vehicles? Is this literal? Let's see. Man found the new earth firm and the heavens fixed. He rejoiced, but also feared, for he lived in dread that the heavens would again bring forth monsters and crash about him. When men came forth from their hiding places and refuges, the world their fathers had known was gone forever. The face of the land was changed, and earth was littered with rocks and stones, which had fallen when the structure of heaven collapsed. Wow. So that's where boulders come from. I mean, this shit is giving great explanations, dog. So when niggas came out of the mountains and out of the caves, it was rocks everywhere. Say littered with stones, rocks and stones, which had fallen when the structure of heaven collapsed. One generation groped in desolation and gloom. As the thick darkness was dispelled, its children believed they were witnessing a new creation. Time passed, memorial dimmed, and the record of events was no longer clear. Generation followed generation, and as the ages unfolded, new tongues and new tales replaced the old. So people was born in the midst of the calamity, and after that, or after the calamity or whatever, and it was messed up. So when it started to clear up, they like, you know what I'm saying, they were witnessing a new creation. So time passed, memory dimmed, and the record of events was no longer clear. This is why you don't know. You don't know. Because of that explanation right there, this shit got all the answers, bro. It says generations followed generation. As the ages unfolded, new tongues and new tales replaced the old. Chapter 4, Affliction of God. This comes from the scroll of Kerubal Pactherman, who wrote, the forebears of all nations of men were once one people. So basically, this seemed like so it seemed like This is a universal like book, mankind book, you know what I'm saying? And had nothing to do with no particular tribe or no particular people. This was just general information that was, you know, collected or that had been, you know, written out so that people can know what happened. And it had nothing to do with nobody particular. So it's a secular book. It's not a religious book. It's a secular book. So it's like almost, you know what I'm saying, like a story of old. I mean, it don't get no deeper. This is really dope that I know Jews wrote it. I know Israelites wrote these things, and the information so far, maybe a couple of things, you know what I'm saying, but the information so far haven't raised a red flag. Let's continue. This comes from the scroll of Kerubal Pachtherman, who wrote, the forebears of all nations of man were once one people, and they were the elect of God, who derived all the earth over to them, all the people, the beasts of the field, the creatures of the wasteland, and the things that grow. They dwelt through long ages of lands and peace and plenty. Says, there were some who struggled harder, were more disciplined, because their forefathers had crossed the great dark void. Their desires were turned Godward, and they were called the children of God. And what is that Hebrew? Those who crossed over. Right? That's what I mean, is that what it's alluding to, it seems? You know, Hebrew. It says they dwelt through long ages in lands of peace and plenty, because their forefathers had crossed the dark void. Their desires were turned Godward, and they were called the children of God. Okay. Their country was undulating, and forested. So it was like way, you know, it's like undulating and forested. It was fertile, having many rivers and marshes. There were great mountains to the east and to the west, and the north was a vast stony plain. Then came the day when all things became still and apprehensive, for God caused a sign to appear in the heavens, so that men should know the earth would be afflicted, and the sign was a strange star. The star grew. I think this is Hebrews, the Hebrew people, the children of God. And they said their forefathers crossed the great dark void. What is the great dark void? I think that story about crossing over the Red Sea or whatever, that's BS. Like, not saying that didn't happen. I'm saying that that's the reason why they're called Hebrew, because that it can't be that, because that happened well. They were called Hebrews long before great dark void. Yeah, Eber. Hebrews, those who crossed over. So yeah, that's long older. So this is good. This is a good little piece. It sort of connects Eber. It says there were some who struggled harder. So yeah, this goes all the way back to the Tower of Babel, because he said, my man say, the forebears of all the nations of man were once one people, and they were the elect of God, who delivered all the earth over to him. All the people, the beasts of the field, the creatures of the wasteland, and the things that grow. They dwelt through long ages in lands of peace and plenty. There were some who struggled harder, were more disciplined, because their forefathers had crossed the great dark void. Their desires were turned Godward, and they were called the children of God. Their country was undulating, and forested. It was fertile, having many rivers and marshes. There were great mountains to the east and to the west, and the north was a vast stony plain. Yeah, this is Israel. This is that. Well, I don't know if it's the same place, but whatever. They came the day when all things came still and apprehensive, for God caused a sign to appear in the heavens, so that men should know the earth would be afflicted. And the sign was a strange star. The star grew and waxed to a great brightness and was awesome to behold. It put forth horns and sang, being unlike any other ever seen. So men, seeing it, said amongst themselves, surely this is God appearing in the heavens above us. The star was not God, though it was directed by his design. But the people had not the wisdom to understand. Then God manifested himself in the heavens. His voice was as a roll of thunders, and he was clothed with smoke and fire. He carried lightnings in his hand, and his wreath and his breath falling upon the earth, brought forth brimstone and embers. His eye was a black void, and his mouth was an abyss containing winds of destruction. He encircled the whole heavens, bearing upon his back a black robe adorned with stars, such as the likeness of and the manifestation of God in those days. Awesome was his countenance, terrible his voice of wrath. The sun and the moon hid themselves in fear, and there was a heavy darkness over the face of the earth. God passed through the space of the heavens above a mighty roar and a loud trumpeting. Then came the grim dead silence and a black red lit twilight doom. Dang. Great fires and smoke rose up from the ground, and men gasped for air. The land was rent asunder and swept clean by a mighty deluge of waters. A hole opened in the middle of the land. The waters entered and sank beneath the sea. The mountains of the east and the west were split apart and stood up in the midst of the waters which raged about. The north land tilted and turned over on its side. Then again the tumult and clamor ceased, and all was silent. It was quite quiet stillness. Madness broke out among men. Frenzy and shouting filled the air. They fell upon one another in senseless, wanton bloodshed. Neither did they spare women or child, for they knew not what they did. Dang. It says that another cataclysm came, and it caused people to go crazy and start committing murders. And they couldn't help it. They didn't know what they was doing. It said they fled to caves and were buried, and taking refuge in trees, they were hung. There was rape, murder, and violence of every kind. The deluge of waters swept back, and the land was purged clean. Rain beat down unceasingly, and there were great winds. The surging waters overwhelmed the land, and man and his flock and his gardens and all his works ceased to exist. Some of the people were saved upon the mountainside and upon the flotsam, but that just probably means stuff that float. But they were scattered far apart over the face of the earth. They fought for survival in the lands of uncouth people. Amid coldness, they survived in caves and sheltered places. The land of the little people, and the land of the giants, the land of the necklace ones, and the land of marsh and mist, and the lands of east and west were all inundated. The mountain land and the lands of the south where there is gold and great beasts were not covered by the waters. Wow. The land of the dwarves and the land of the giants. Bro. The land of the necklace ones, the blimier, the ones that's got their hand, the chest, their faces on their chest. The land of the necklace ones and the land of marshes and mists. The lands of the east and west were all inundated. Drawn together. Let's see. Overwhelmed with things or people to be dealt with. Oh, so the cataclysm brought people into certain lands that they once were in. Wow. Did I just read that? It says the east and west were inundated, the mountain land and the lands of the south, where there is gold and great beasts, were not covered by the waters. So it happened in the center. Men were distracted and in despair. They rejected the unseen God behind all things for something. That they rejected the unseen God behind all things for something, which they had seen and known by its manifestation. They were less than children in those days and could not know that God had afflicted the earth in understanding and not willfully, for the sake of man and the correction of his ways. The earth is not for the pleasure of man, but is a place of instruction for his soul. Did y'all hear that? Earth is not for the pleasure of man, but it is a place of instruction for his soul. A man more readily feels the stirrings of his spirit in the face of disaster than in the lap of luxury. God, what the hell? Bro, this is heavy. Yo, I rock with this. Yo, just reading this again, bro. Like, listen what it. The earth is not for the pleasure of man, but it is a place of instruction for his soul. A man more readily feels the stirrings of his spirit in the face of disaster than in the lap of luxury. The tuition of the soul is a long and arduous course of instruction and training. So the Most High. So y'all, God, so men just started. We did it again. We didn't turn. It's about to happen again. I mean, basically, that's what it's looking like. I mean, because that's what we did. We didn't turn living into. Living is for feeling good. Living life is feeling good. I remember I had a conversation with a girl on one time, and she was like, I was like, it wasn't my place, but we was talking about it, and I was telling her that I was, celibate, and she was like, don't you want a woman? And I'm like, yeah, I want a woman. She was like, what are you doing to physically? Are you actively seeking a girl? Are you, doing this and are you doing that? And I was just like, I'm kind of not. And she was like, well, that's what life is all about. It's about enjoying life. It's about getting out here and meeting people and having experiences and this, that, and the other. But this right here says it's not for that. It's for instruction of the soul. And that's very, very interesting. It says the tuition of the soul is a long and arduous course of instruction and training. Let's look up arduous. Involving or requiring strenuous effort, difficult and tiring. Hallelujah. It says the tuition, the payment of the soul, the tuition of the soul is a long and arduous course of instruction and training. In order to gain your soul, you got to go through instruction and training. But if you don't go through this, the tuition that you ain't paying, that's the tuition. So if you're not learning the instruction of the Most High, then basically you don't gain your soul. You lose it when it's time for the reset. As we reading, you don't get that. That's not yours. But those who do go through the instruction and training receive that they get to have their soul. But wait, we ain't there yet. This shit is really, really deep. Hold on. It says God is good, and from good evil cannot come. He is perfect, and perfection cannot produce imperfection. Only the limited understanding of man sees imperfection in that which is perfect for its purpose. This grievous affliction of man was another of his great tests. He failed, and in doing so followed the paths of unnatural gods of his making. Man make gods by naming them, but wherein this is the benefit to him. Evil comes in the midst of mankind, spawned by the fears of ignorance of men. An evil man comes from an evil spirit, and whatever there is on earth comes either from evil of spirits or evil of men. Wow. Gotta do it. I want to read that again. It says, this grievous affliction of man was another of his great tests. He failed, and in doing so followed the paths of unnatural gods of his making. Man makes gods by naming them, but wherein this is the benefit to him. Evil comes in the midst of mankind, spawned by the fears and ignorance of men. An evil man becomes an evil spirit. And wherever evil there is on earth comes either from the evil of spirits or the evil of men. Chapter 5, the beginning. It says, now the children of God were molded by the hand of God, which is called Awin. Awin means inspiration. It says, it's a Welsh word called inspiration. I looked that up. It says, so now the children of God were molded by the hand of God, which is called inspiration. It is manifested according to their desires. For all things that have life are molded by inspiration. The fox, shivering in the cold lands, longs for warmth, and so its cubs have coats. The owl, clumsy in the dark, longs to see its prey more clearly, and in the generations of longing, desire is granted. Inspiration makes everything what it is, for all things change under its law. Wow. That's like the neck of the what you call it, the giraffe, the neck of the giraffe reaching out, trying to get, you know what I'm saying, the food, to get the leaves, and it was too high. So over generations, a wind caused his neck to stretch, according to this narrative. It said men too are molded by their desires. But unlike the beasts and birds, their yearnings are circumscribed by the laws of fate and destiny and the law of sowing and reaping. Wow. So wow. All right, the desires modified by the laws are called Indovadu. Enidvadu. That's probably not even a word that we can look up. I don't even think so. I think I tried to. Yeah, subscribe to the Kolbrin Bible. So, okay, so but it tells you what it is. It said these the desires modified by the laws are called indu wadu, inni vadu. Unlike the beasts and birds, this in man is something relating to him rather than to his offspring, though they are not untouched by it. Destiny may be likened to a man who must travel a distant city, to a distant city. So this is destiny. Like destiny is like a man that must travel to a distant city, whether or not he wishes to make the journey. The destination being his destiny. So a man's destiny is getting somewhere, whether or not you want to do it or not. This is what your destiny is. This is what you're going to end up doing. It says he may choose whether to go by way of river or by way of a plain, whether across mountains or through forests, on foot or horseback, slow or fast. And whatever befalls because of this decision is fate. So, wow, that's deep. So destiny is your destination. You gotta go there. You gotta go. How you choose to go falls up under fate. So if a tree falls on him because he chooses the forest path, it was fated. For luck is an element of fate. Destiny leaves no choice. Fate gives limited choices, which may be good or bad, but it cannot be averted. What is fated must be, for at no point can there be any turning back. The circumstances inivadu, or the traveler confirm to the law of sowing and reaping. The circumstances inivadu of the traveler conform to the law of sowing and reaping. He may travel in comfort or in pain, happily or sorrowful, with strength or weakness, heavily burdened or lightly burdened, well prepared or ill prepared. When the destination is set according to the degrees of a former life, then the circumstances of the journey should conform to with the desire. For what use is it in it desiring a great destination within the law of sowing and reaping decrees that an intolerable burden must be carried on the way? Far better to have lesser aspirations. The decrees of fate are many, and the decrees of destiny are few. Wow. I like that. It says, for what use is it desiring a great destination when the law of sowing and reaping decrees that an intolerable burden must be carried on the way? It says better to just desire less. And you know what I'm saying? The decrees of fate are many. The decrees of destiny are few. When the earth was young and the race of man still as children, there were fertile green pastures in the land, where all now is sand and barren wasteland. And in the midst of it was a garden land, which lay upon its edges of the earth eastwards towards the sun rising. It was called Mura, meaning the great place of the garden on the plain. It lay at the foot of a mountain, which was cleft at its rising, and out of it flowed the river of Tardania, which watered the plain from the mountain. Tardania. Like Tartary. I gotta put another battery in this. Give me a second. Let me put another battery in. Switch to. So this is an interesting book, y'all. I like it. I like this book. We are reading the Kolbrin Bible. We're in a chapter called The Creation, I believe. I really like this book, y'all. Man. Take a pause for the cause. All right. Boom. Right here. Let me see what's back up. All right. We back. We are back. That's right. We are reading the Kolbrin Bible, dog. This shit is incredibly dope. I really like this book. I mean, just the fact that it's provoking thought in me as I'm reading it. Okay. So where we at? So this place right here sounds familiar in its description. Especially when it says that the mountain, that it says that earth eastward towards the rising, and it's called Mura. Like, is that like Mount Meru? Meaning the place of the guarding on the plain. It lay at the foot of a mountain, which was cleft at its rising, and out of it flowed the river of Tardania, which watered the plain from the mountain. On the other side ran the river Kal, which watered the plain through the land of Chaldan. The river Nara flowed westward and then turned back and flowed around the garden land. It was a fertile place, for out of the ground grew every kind of tree. Let me show y'all this right quick, bro. How do I do this? Give me 1 second. Let me show y'all this. Trying to find my maps folder, because that description, as I was reading it, I seen it. I know what he's talking about. I'm about to show y'all. And this is why I was wondering, Like, how did they have map? Like, why the maps that we have today don't match the maps from, you know, the 1100s and the 1400s and the 1500s and all of this, that, and the other? Like, why are all the maps different? If I can find my map folder, because I know what they're talking about. Wow. Okay. We got it on this. Let me see. See if I can get this map, bro. This, like, I don't even know. Perry, is it Ria's Perry map? Let me see if I can do that through here. Using this Microsoft, man, this mug is not like Google, and I'm really tired of this mug actually. I mean, as soon as you clicked it, these maps used to come up. Now you'll see. There we go. There we go, right there. Boom. That's what he's describing right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look, now keep this in mind. Now look at it. This is the North Pole. There is no ice. There's the mountain right there. And these little, like, I'll show y'all when I after I'm finished with this. Like, certain lands have names like Pygmy. And that's what it says on here. Look. When the earth was young and the race of men still had and the race of men still as children, there were fertile and green pastures in the lands, where all is now sand and barren wasteland. In the midst of the garden land which lay against the edge of the earth, eastward towards the risings, and it was called Mura, meaning the place of the garden on the plain. It lay at the foot of a mountain, which was cleft at its rising, and out of it flowed the river of Tardania, which watered the plain. From the mountain on the other side ran the river Kal, which watered the plain through the land of Chaldan. The river Nara flowed eastward and then turned back to flow around the garden land. It was a fertile place, for all the ground grew every kind of tree that was good, and food of every tree that was pleasant in the sight. Every herb could be eaten, and every herb that flowered was there. The tree of life, which was called glacier, having leaves of gold and copper, was within the sacred enclosure. There, too, the great tree of wisdom, bearing fruits of knowledge, granting the choice of an ability to know the true from the false. It is the same tree, which can be read as men read a book. There also was a tree of trespass, beneath which grew the lotus of rapture. And in the center was the place of power, where God made his presence known. Wow. Time passed, and the children of God were growing strong and upright under the tempering hammer of God and earth. The anvil of God became more kindly. All was pleasant and food plentiful, but life paused in such places, for it is against the nature of man to flourish in these circumstances. Earth is not for pleasurable dallying. It is a place of teaching and trial testing. Wow. The children of God were not yet their heirs of God. The children of God were not yet the heirs of God, nor inheritors of godhood. But there was one among them who had almost completing the pilgrimage of Envudu. Oh, so we all going on it separately. It's not a collaborative thing. We all have to take this pilgrimage of learning. Get it now. We all have to take the pilgrimage of learning. It says, the children of God were not yet heirs of God, nor inheritors of godhood, but there was one among them who had almost completed the pilgrimage of Enivadu. He had unveiled and tangled skeins of fate and traversed the tumultuous seas of life, the many ports of destiny, and having paid the debts of sowing and reaping, was one triumphant over Enivadu. Hey, I want to be triumphant over that. He said he had unveiled the tangled skeins of fate, and traversed the tumultuous seas of life to the many ports of destiny, and having paid the debts of sowing and reaping, was one triumphant over Enivadu. He was Fambar, son of Uma, and Atim. He was wise and knew all things. He beheld mysteries and the secret things hidden from the eyes of other men. Sound like Toth or somebody, or Enoch. He saw sunrise and the sun setting in their splendor, but longed for things not realizable in the place where he lived. So because he walked with God, he was coddled out from his kind and brought to Mura, the garden place. Sound like Enoch. He came to it across the mountains and wastelands, arriving after many days journeying, weary and close to death because of the privations privations he suffered. He could just reach the refreshing waters from which he drank deeply, and filled with exhaustion, he slept. In his sleep, he dreamed, and this was the manner of his dreaming. He saw before him a being indescribable, glory and majesty, who said, I am God above all, even above the God of your people. I am that which fulfills the aspiration of men, and I am that which they are fulfilled. You are having traversed all the circles of Inivudu and established your worthiness. Are now made my governor on earth, and you shall rule all things here, guiding them in my ways, leading them ever upwards to glory. This will be your labor, and behold, here is your reward. A cloud mist seemed to gather about the glorious being and enfolding him, so he was no longer visible. Then the mist gradually cleared, and the man saw another form emerging. It was that of a woman, but one such as Fanvar had never seen before, beautiful beyond his conception of beauty, with such perfection of form and grace that he was dumbfounded. Yet the vision was not substantial. She was a wraith, an ethereal being. What? These moms got ethereal beings in this shit, bro. This is the most, bro. This is the best book I ever read, dog. I'm not even lying. Like, bro. The man awoke and sought food from the fruits about him, and having refreshed himself, wandered about the garden. This a 3,000-year-old. It is purported that this book, the information compiled within this book that had been edited for a recent purpose, is 3,600 years old. Ethereal beings, giants, dwarfs, demons. I mean, come on, bro. You can't get a better book than this right now. You show me one. The man awoke and sought food from the fruits about him, and having refreshed himself, wandered about the garden. Wherever he went, he saw the wraith, but was unafraid because she smiled encouragingly, bringing comfort to his heart. He built himself a shelter and grew strong again, but always wherever he went, the wraith was not far distant. One day near the edge of the garden, he fell asleep in the heat of the day and woke to find himself surrounded by the sons of Bothus. Not true men, but yoslings, kinfolk to the beasts of the forest. Let me look that up. Let's look that up, see what that is. Why many Bothus in South Africa having wrong surname? Sex, lies, and DNA. Wow. Why many Bothus in South? What's that? Person. A primitive indigenous species called the children of the earth, known as yoslings, half folk, not true men. Yo, y'all ain't rocking with this. Dog, this shit. This is where they got everything from, bro. They got bro, this mug got everything, bro. But like I said, this right here is where they talking about. There go the mountain right there. That's the magnetic mountain, Mount Meru. But let's continue. Says he woke up and found some niggas around him, all hairy, some hairy dudes around him. Said not true men, but yoslings, kinfolks to the beasts of the forest. Before they could take his strength and wisdom, he loosed himself among them, slaying some in his rage down beneath the great tree. For he was wounded, and blood gushed out from his side and gathered thickly beside him. He became faint, falling into a deep sleep, And while he slept, a wondrous thing happened. The wraith came and lay beside him, taking blood from his wound upon himself, so it congealed about her. Thus the spirit being became clothed with his flesh, born of congealing blood, and being sundered from his side, she rose a mortal woman. Eve, dog. There's an explanation for every. Listen, bro. This mug got an explanation for everything. I mean, I'm not saying. Listen, bro. Like I said, I'm only endorsing a book as a good read. It's definitely a good read. Definitely has a great amount of wisdom in it. You know what I'm saying? It's very thought provoking. And like I said, I already believed in all of this. Like my research already showed me that this stuff existed. So for it to be all in one place, I'm just really enjoying it. I wish I had my glasses. Oh, this is in the car. Should go out and get them. It says, so he woke up around some Bigfoot looking motherfucker, whatever they were. And they got into a fight with him before they can, he ended up bleeding. And the little spirit girl that had been following him around, leading him on or whatever, end up saving him by covering up his wound, and blood that congealed became one with her. It says, and became clothed with flesh, born of congealing blood, and being sundered from his side, she rose a mortal woman. In his heart, Fambar was not at rest because of her likeness, but she was gentle, ministering to him with solicitude, and being skillful in the ways of healing, she made him whole. Therefore, when he had grown strong again, he made her queen of the garden land, and she was so called even by our fathers, who named her Gula. But Fambar called her Aruya. Like, let's see Ruach in there. Let me see what that. Ruya. Okay. Occurs 370 times. It says, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God. So, Aruya. Spirit of God. So, and Adam, probably, man, whatever. But I'm just saying, the Spirit of God plus something. All right, Aruya. So, Fambar called her Aruya, meaning helpmate. That means helpmate. In our tongue, she is called Lady of Lanvid. Now God enlightened Fambar concerning the woman, saying this woman was drawn from her capable abode in a realm of beauty. Through the yearning aspirations of men, her coming accomplishes something which would otherwise have taken countless generations, for the earth is far more fitting for men to learn manly things than for women to learn womanly ones. This woman is not as other women, being in no way like yourself. Every hair of her head is unlike that of man. Every drop of blood and every particle of flesh is that of a woman, and quite unlike that of a man. Her thoughts and despairs are different. She is neither coarse nor uncouth, being altogether of another, more refined realm. Her daughters will walk proudly endowed with every womanly perfection and grace. Delicacy, modesty, and charm will be the lovely jewels enhancing their womanliness. Henceforth, man will be truly man, and women will be truly women. Men being girded and with manliness, and women clothed with womanliness, yet they shall walk together hand in hand towards the ascending glory before them, each of the helpmate and inspiration of the other. So Fambar and Aruya lived in contentment and amid bounty and fruitfulness, with freedom from afflictions and sickness. They delighted in each other, and because of their differences, were drawn closer together. Aruya bought but one thing. I think that's beautiful. That's dope. Right? And it's still an explanation. Like, it's not too far from what's written in the scripture. Because God is the overall conductor of everything. So even if, like, yeah. But anyway, chapter 16. Aruya bought but one thing with her when she crossed the misty frontier, the treasure of Langvid, and the jewel contained in the moon chalice, the stone of inspiration fashioned by the desires of men, never owned by any but the daughters of Aruya. The lingil Aruya gave to Fanvar as her dowry and her pledge of purity and exclusiveness. She followed the ways of the cradle land, not the ways of the earth. Of the cradle land. So let's go and look at the cradle land again. This is the cradle land, the north that they're hiding from. This is beyond the North Pole. This is beyond the North Pole. The cradle land. This is where everything began. This is where I said life didn't start in Africa. Life started at the top of the earth in the north, up here, and man moved down. Okay, that's why I go with the pyramid earth, because I already know what I know. Y'all, I know more than the average person on the matter. So when I say it, it sounds insane, but I've read so much, and this right here is just dope. The cradle land. Man originates in the cradle land, not Africa. Africa is not the cradle land. Continue. Says she followed the ways of the cradle land, not the ways of earth. Within the garden land was a sacred enclosure, the domain of Fanvar and Aruya, forbidden to those of the children of God who had not come to this place. It contained a chalice of fulfillment, and granting any who drank from it its realization of all things to which they aspired. None might drink from this, says Fanvar and Aruya. Also, there was the cauldron of immortality, containing the essence of distilled from the fruits growing in the garden, and this guarded against mortals' ills. And this guarded against mortal ills. Okay. Aruya brought forth a son by Fanvar, and he was called Ratoki, and a daughter who was called Armina. Each knew the mysteries of magic and the ways of the stars. In fullness of time, Ratoki married among the daughters of the sons of God and had two sons, Inari and Induka. It was Inari who first taught the weaving of cloth from plants, and Induka was a mighty hunter. Armenia also married among the sons of God, who brought forth a son who was called Balinki or Bel-Inki, and the daughters called Ananua, and Mamita. Ananua knew the making of pots and things of clay, and Mamita the taming of beasts and birds. In Duka, Ninduka had two sons, Namatara and Canaan. Namatara had two sons also, Ninduka and Dadam. Before dying, the fulfillment of man, says, before dying in the fullness of manhood, Belinki married Indiva and had a son called Enkidu, and a daughter called What? Astaroth, meaning maid of the morning. This sounds like that the Sumerian stuff. Just probably like, anglicized type names. But look at it. Enkidu, Astaratha, who became the first moon maiden, being later called Lady of the Morning Star. Enkidu had a daughter and her name was Mava. Outside the sacred enclosure known as Jisar, but forming a gateway into it was a circular structure of stone called Gilgal. And within this was a shrine wherein was kept a sacred vessel called Gwendiva. This was like a goblet and was made of a rainbow-hued crystal set in gold with pearls. Above the cup appeared a shimmering moon-colored mist like a thin, cold flame. At certain times, when the heavens were in a proper position, the Gwenduiva was filled with moon dew, and potions from the cauldron within the sacred enclosure make a pale honey-colored liquor, and this the people drank from the goblet. However, there were different proportions in the vessel for those of the blood of Famvar and Aurora, and those who were the children of God, but not of their blood. It was the potion from the Gwenduvia Duiva. It was the potion from the Gwenduvia which kept sickness and disease away from those who drank it. The dam, the first father, married Lithia, and they had a son called Hethru. The dam married Mava, who had a daughter not by him, and this was Guinevere. The cuckoo child fathered by Abramine and Garthon, son of Namtinigo, whom we call Luwit the Dark Father. About the land of the children of God was the wasteland, where Yoslings called the children of Zuma, which means they who inherit death, dwelt amongst these Namtinigo, and Wily Hunter. The Wily Hunter was the most wise and cunning. He alone was unafraid of the children of God, and he alone dared to enter the garden land. In the days of Esteroth was teaching, Namtinigo often came to hear her words. The children of God were not displeased, for the teaching of the wild men about them was a duty with which they had been charged. So they had to teach the wild men. The children of God were not displeased, for teaching the wild men about them was a duty which they were been charged. They had been charged. Namtinigo therefore participated in their rites, but could not partake of their elixir from the Gwenduiva, because this was forbidden, while it gave health and strength to the children of God, safeguarding them from the sickness of the Yoslings. If given to others, it caused wasting away. It was also altogether forbidden of the children of God to mate with the Yoslings, for this was deemed to be the most unforgivable sin. Now, the wily one learned much from Estroth, and in the fullness of time, brought his own son to her, and he became as her son, living in her house and forsaking the ways of his people. Estrada called him Lewid, the light bringer, for it was her intention that he should be taught the ways of those who walked in light, that he might enlighten his people. Lewid grew up tall and handsome. He was quick to learn and became wise. He was also a man of chase, strong and enduring, a hunter of renown. Sound like Nimrod. Anyway, but there were times when the people of his people was strong. Then he would go out furtively into the night to indulge in the dark rituals. Thus he became knowledgeable in the ways of the flesh and in the carnal indulgences of the body. The damned became a servant of the sacred enclosure where the misty veil between the realms could be penetrated. For all those having the blood of Aruya had twin sight, an ability to see wraiths and Sith folks. Sith folks? That's where the damn Star Wars get. Man, all of these mugs, they getting everything from this. This is 3,000 years old, bro. Like, they getting everything from this shit. I'm gonna take a pause right quick. Let me go get some more water.
Like, the dude is literally on a panel watching women.
All right, and we back. We back. All right, so the damned became a servant of the sacred enclosure where the misty veil between the rams could be penetrated. For all those having the blood of Aruya had twin sight and an ability to see wraiths and Sith folk, Anissus, and spirit beings. Ansys. What's an Ansys? It ain't no definition for it, huh? A musician who has gained immense recognition for the album. Yeah, well, I don't know what that is, but whatever it is out otherworldly. Let's continue. So Aurelia children, people who had Aurelia blood, had twin sight, an ability to see wraiths, Sith folk, Ansys, and spirit beings, all the things of the other world, not clearly, but as though a veil. Besides the place called Gishar was a pleasant parkland with trees of every kind and a stream, as also thickets of flowering bushes of all manner of plants growing lusciously. It was the custom of Mava to wander there in the sunshine, and Lu also went there. So it came about that they met among the trees. Mava knew the man but had shunned him in the past. Now she saw he was handsome, possessed of many attractions, so her foot was stayed and she did not run away. As the days passed, they dallied longer together, and Luvid talked of things Mava had not heard before. She felt a stirring in her blood, but did not respond or heed to his temptations because of the things that were forbidden. So Luvid went to the Moon Mother, wise woman of the Yoslings, and telling of these desires, beseech her to help him. The Moon Mother gave him 2 apples containing a vile substance, which they had drawn through their stalks. This Luvid gave Mava, who then became helpless in his hands. What? The Moon Mother gave him 2 apples containing, it says, so Luvid went to the Moon Mother, the wise woman of the Yoslings, and telling of his desires, beseech her to help him. So he want to holler at Mava. She gave him motherfucking date rape drug. What the hell? So the dude like, yo, I want to holler at one of the Yoslings, you know what I'm saying? Old Moon Mother, and she like, yo, here. And she gave him the date rape drug. Basically, that's what it sounds like. She causing us to be helpless. It says the Moon Mother gave him 2 apples containing a vile substance, which they had drawn together their stalks. This Luvid gave to Mava, who then became helpless in his hands. They met again after this, for Mava became enamored towards Luvid, but it happened that she became ill with a strange sickness and was afraid. Then Dandam became ill, and Luvid also. And Luvid said to the woman, you must obtain the pure essence from within the sacred enclosure, and Sentina, the Moon Mother, will prepare an elixir which will cure us. This, he said, because of none of his kind had ever been able to obtain the sacred substance, though they had always coveted what it had been denied them. Now, because of her frailty, the woman was pliable and in his hands, and Luvid seized the opportunity. To achieve his ends, Luvid gave Mava a potion which had been prepared by the Moon Mother, and she administered this to Dandam and those with him, and by gall and deceit, so they fell asleep. While they slept, Mava stole from the sacred substances and took them to Luvid and gave them to the Moon Mother. She made a brew. Part of this was given to Mava, and the rest was drunken by the Yoslings from their awful Ankito. What's that? One with auspicious signs engraving. from their awful Akito during the night rites. When the morning came, they were all smitten with grievous pangs. And before the sun set that day, all the younglings were stricken with a sickness such as they had not known before. Mava took what had been given to her, and finding Dardum lay low in his bed, gave him a draught from her vessel, though she had to use womanly wiles to get him to drink it. She drank the remainder, and they both slept. But when they awoke in the morning, both were suffering pains, and this was something they had not known before. Dardum said to the woman, "What have you done? For what has happened to us cannot be unless the things which are forbidden have been done." The woman replied, "Lord, I was tempted, and I fell, and I have done that which was forbidden and unforgivable." What? So this is like an alternate this is like an alternate fruit story, yo. So this is older than the King James Bible. I hope you know that, right? Let me continue though. It says, the woman replied, "Lord, I was tempted and I fell. I have done that which is forbidden and unforgivable." Daniel said, "I am bound by duty to do certain things, but first let us go into the Gishar to the place called Beth Kelrice. So it's like house. Beth Kelrice, where I will seek enlightenment." So they went there together and stood before the shrine beneath the tree of wisdom. There they were filled with an inflowing vision, seeing themselves as they were and as they should have been, and they were ashamed. He, because he had not followed the proper path of a man, and she, because her falsity. There, in the reflecting mist, the contamination of the woman was revealed, and the man's heart shriveled within him like a flower licked by flame. Then they saw a great spirit being materializing in the reflecting mist, and he said to them, "Woe to you and your house, for the greatest of evils have befallen the race of the children of God, and is defiled. The heritage of Kadam Hapa is lost, and the fatigue flowing, defiling the woman results from the incompatible intermingling. But it is not all, for sickness and disease are also generating in the ferments of the impure implantation." Dardum said, "The fault is with the woman, wherefore I should suffer." The spirit being replied, "Because you two are now as one, the cankerworm of disease and sickness strike both equally. But you shall not again defile this place. Henceforth, the misty veil becomes an impenetrable barrier, severing our two realms from each other, so they can no longer be easily spanned. Between us, there will now be no means of communication. Henceforth, man and woman, fated to unite in love divine, shall be divided and set apart though ever yearning reunion. They may cleave one to the other, seeking the unity which will rekindle the flame, but unless their efforts transcend the limitations of earthly things, they will be in vain. The spirit of man is now severed from the whole and cast again into unconsciousness, and it too shall long for reunion with the whole. The spark shall seek to return to the fire, and otherwise it becomes nothing. The web of fate is rewoven, and the path of destiny remade. The design of life is redrawn. Again, the progression begins in ignorance, birth and death, pain and pleasure, joy and sorrow, success and failure, love and hate, peace and war, all the light and shade, and many hues make splendidly intricate patterns of life on earth. This is a new beginning, but a beginning not in purity and unencumbered, but one already weighed with debts and burdens. Wow. So this is like sweet. This is like a little alternate, Adam and Eve story or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'm digging it. I mean, like I said, the shit is supposed to be older than. It's older than the shit we read in the Bible, bro. What am I supposed to do? I'm just reading it. Spirit beings. You know what I'm saying? The monks say what they say. I gotta read that again up there. It said how they got the vial from the woman and all this, that, and the other. Like they don't supposed to mix. Let me see. The children of God were driven out of the garden land by spirit beings, and then guardians were set at its gates so none could re-enter. Then it was withdrawn beyond the misty veil. The waters ceased to flow, and the fertility departed. Only a wilderness remained. The children of God went to dwell in the land of Aminigel, which is beyond the mountains of Mashur, by the sea of Delmunya. From this time onward, man fashioned his own spirit likeness. Some who were loathsome in aspect, even unto themselves, went apart and mercifully veiled in dark depths. And they said amongst themselves, let us dwell in the darkness and prepare a place for others like ourselves, so that when they follow, they abide here and join us. Thus were the dark regions formed and inhabited by demons, who are not but the hideous fashioned spirits of evil men. Wow. So, so the niggas is like, yo, that's crazy. Listen to what it says. It says, from this time onward, man fashioned his own spirit likeness. Some who were loathsome in aspect, even unto themselves, went apart and were mercifully veiled in dark depths. And they said amongst themselves, let us dwell here in the darkness and prepare a place for others like ourselves, so that when they follow, they abide here and join us. Sound like hell. Thus were dark regions formed and inhabited by demons, who were not but the hideously fashioned spirits of even evil men. Said, these things have been written into the record. In Siboyet, they used to say, this was the manner of man's making. God sent his creating craftsman spirit down to earth, and the reflection of the one was drawn into the spiritless body, and this became the heart of man. God sent his creating craftsman spirit down to earth, and the reflection of the one was drawn into the spiritless body, and this became the heart of man. These are the words written by Thonius of Myra in Laodicea in his day. You asked me, what is man? And I answered, he is life becoming aware of itself. He is the intangible knowing the tangible. Spirit in matter, fire in water. When this first happened, none remembers, and only the old folk tales remain. There was the beginning, then the garden, and it was in this garden man found himself. Before this, he was not free, being one with everything about him. As he could not disobey good and evil, could not be, they were not existent. They were non-existent. He said, as he could not disobey, good and evil could not be. They were non-existent. Man became free through awareness of himself, and with this knowledge, denied any kinship with the beast. As he was no longer in harmonious relationship with things of the earth, he became discontented, dissatisfied, and restless. He wanted to belong, but felt his place of belonging was not there. He had been reborn as a man god, and therefore it is truly said that man was born of earth and spirit under a tree, the symbol of life, and in a garden. There the eyes of man and women were open, and being above the beasts, they knew they were different and set apart from all else that breathed. They separated themselves, being now ashamed of their state and strangers to each other. The carnal satisfaction of lesser creatures now no longer suffice. They had lost contact with the source of love, but though knowing something was lacking, knew not what. They had fallen into a carnal knowledge which only man can know, for only he feels the reproach of divinity. They were removed from the garden of content by an annihilation of the divine substance, and could not return because of their barrier between man and non-man. Wow. That's what's up. It says, Kamlik has written the entwine. It says Kamlik has written, the entwine were cut apart, and since that day have never known content. They wander restlessly, ever seeking to unite again, and together find the jewel which is lost to earth forever. Lupicius has written, the first woman who came from the void is the eternal glorified goddess and inspirer of hearts, the idea of womanhood honored by all men, the priestess at the shrines of delicacy and the tenderness. She was the ideal woman because of man's nature is always tempted by his twin shade, the beast in his form. If the beast triumphs and she falls, the idea becomes enshrouded in winding cloths of disillusionment, and something is lost to the heart of a man. These words are also there. They did not partake of wisdom, and fruit from the tree of knowledge is bitter. Men are denied their true birthright. The fall of man was a fall from loving contact with God into material carnality. The soul that shared the consciousness of God fell into unconsciousness by becoming ensnared in matter. The fall severed man from the source of his spiritual sustenance. Thereafter, his efforts were to struggle back. Wow. So ever since the fall, it's been our duty to actually get back to that place. The fall severed man from the source of his spiritual sustenance. Thereafter, his efforts were to struggle back in his blind groping for God. After the fall, he discovered demons and found it easier to worship them than to continue to search. God is always waiting. Man has only to look. God is always waiting. Man has only to look up. But it is easier to go down to the hill than to climb it. It is easier for man's spiritual belief to degenerate than to evolve. Who among men knows the truth and can write with certain knowledge? Would not this certainty be against the law? No man was there at the beginning to see and write, but of one thing alone we can be assured. The creating God knows how and why, and could the acts of one so great be without purpose? So he can't. Yeah, that's interesting. So God is not going to create everything without a purpose. The Mava fled for her life, and many kinfolk went with her. But Dandam, excuse me, but Dandam, unable to follow, being laid low with the sickness, this loosened his tongue so it became uncontrollable, making him babble like a child. And this sickness covered his body with red sores, from which came an issue. Luvid also departed from a place far out in the wilderness. Those with Dandam who looked back towards the place, back towards the place of the garden, saw the birthright, the bright tongues of light licking the sky above. And who, dang, it's sort of like all of these is Adam and Eve. All of the original Adam and Eve story, these particular people are sharing. So this is where the Bible got the stories from. I mean, clearly, I mean, if this is older than, I mean, it's 3,600 years old. I mean, come on. Mava fled for her life, and many kinfolk went with her. But Dandam was unable to follow, being laid low with sickness. This loosened his tongue so it became uncontrollable, making him babble like a child, and the sickness covered his body with red sores, from which came an issue. Luvi had also departed for a place far out in the wilderness. Those with Dandam who looked back towards the place of the garden saw bright tongues of light licking the sky above, and the whole being interwoven in flickering flames in many hues. Those who sought to return were repulsed with a tingling ache over their bodies, which increased into severe pain, and as they approached, so they were driven away. So this mug got a force field up and some vibrations with some type of frequencies where they get to it, and it's messing with their body. I mean, that's what it looked like. That's what it sounded like. Something going on. So, I mean, the angel with the sword at the gate at the Garden of Eden. You know what I'm saying? This little story right here. I mean, come on, bro. This like sound more. It sound more plausible to me. I'm sorry, it just do. It said, those who sought to return were repulsed. Uh-oh. Those who sought were sought to return were repulsed with tingling and ache over their bodies, which increased into severe pain as they approached, so they were driven away. When Dandam recovered so he could stand, only a few remained with him, and they all moved further into the wilderness to a place where there was a water and a pasture. There Dandam had left Herthru, his son, and the boy's mother, and Habaris the learned, and set out to find Luvid. After many days, Dam and those with him came upon Luvid and his Yoslings, who were full of sickness, and slew many. But Luvid was not slain, though mortally wounded. He lay against a great rock. When Dandam came near, Luvid raised his arm heavily and said, "Hail to the victor and benefactor, who has come to terminate our wretchedness." While Dandam stood sternly contemplating him, Luvid said, "To kill me now is your prerogative, for even we lesser beings are far removed from Godmen, having the law of husbandry pride. Having the law of husbandly pride. What I did has been done before and will be done again. But I erred by crossing an unknown barrier which could not be discerned. For we within ourselves are no more contagious to each other than are your people. If I then must die, let it be for my part in spawning the cankerworms of disease which have stricken both our peoples. Back in the dreaming time, when the great gods strove among themselves for dominion in the sky spaces, a wide expanse of earth was rent apart by unearthly wildfire. Bematha was cut apart by the bright arrows of Shemaz. Then this land was given to my people as their dominion, while yours was in another unearthly place far distant. Our dominion was a pleasant place, and though you teach that place of this, and though you teach that because of this, we remain as we are, yet we are content. We know of no great design, nor of any barely attainable objectives to which men must aspire. Such striving, as you know, is to us no more than purposeless vexation. I have my God, and you have yours. And as they strove one against the other before times, so will it always be. But now there is a new battleground with new battle chiefs. I will go to my appointed place, and you will go to yours. And from thence, as leaders of the fray, we shall wage a never-ceasing war. Such is fated and must be. But who will win the fair prize of earth for their king? We shall not strive with clubs and lances, the hurtling of stones and flying dart, but with mere subtle weaponry. This thing is not our choice, but we are but playthings of fate. That you and I should head the fray is not because of our qualities, but because we were where we were when we were. Wow. Fate. He said this is not because of our qualities, but because we were where we were when we were. Now we are but two precarious points of life in a hostile wilderness, but what might we be in 100 generations? The dam said, these things I know too, for my eyes have always been open. I too have looked out into an endless plain without any horizon, but I shall lead those who have grown strong through seeking and striving, while those in your ranks will be weakened through their indulgence in the flesh pots and pleasures of earth. We are the disinherited, but not the disowned. We have the seeds of victory within us. You and yours were never more than you are, sons of an easy path, followers of the downhill road. Then, when these things have been taken, wow, this is like an angel and the devil talk, like Michael and Satan talking. It says, the down road, either you and yours were never more than you are, sons of the easy path, followers of the downhill road. Then, when these things had been spoken, Luvid died, and the dam and those with him burnt his body. The dam and those with him wandered into the wasteland for many days, then turned southward towards the mountain. Then it happened that one day, Dandam was seated apart in solitude among rocks, with his chin on his chest. And a hunter of the Ubalites came upon him from behind. The hunter slung a smooth stone. As a man turned, it struck out his eye. Then Ubala slew him by smashing his head with a stone. This hunter was the son of Ankaradu, son of Inuri, Inanari. Ankaradu, son of Inanari, king of the Ubalites, by Urkia, daughter of the Chassites. This is known because those who were with Dandam came out of the barren places and learned the ways of the builders, becoming great among the Ubalites and raising cities along the rivers. Along them was Inkigal, who built Keridor, which stands between the two great rivers at Netar and Balith Sharmamam. Baal Let's Sharamam, who taught men the ways of writing, setting the letters upon the pillar of Herak. Herthu, son of the first father. So, wow. The book of the beginnings tells us all things began with Farkifa, therein called Awin Khalifa, from whom flows Gwinnen, the energy, the energizer, which stabilizes all things so they maintain their proper form, and Awen, inspiration, which responds to the molding desire. This is well enough, but men concern themselves more with the beginnings of their race, and ours is rooted in Herthu, the sun-faced son of the first father. While Herthu was still young, he was expelled from the lush lands where he was born, and he enjoyed across the harsh lands in the company of keeping of wise Habarists. After many days, they came to Caucasus, cradle land in our race. Was it cradle land of our race, land of mountains and rivers, which is besides Ardis. They encamped there in a valley. With them were retainers and flocks. Herthu grew to manhood, and always Habarists was at his side, instructing him in all things he should know. He taught Herthu 9 essential disciplines of Imanin, and the secrets of the 3 sacred vessels. Herthu learned that there was a place of gloom where the air was foul, and a malodorous breeze carried pestilences and poisonous particles. This was the source of all maladies and ailments, and of the things which cause putrefaction and decay. This place had been closed off from earth, for it existed in another realm beyond the ken of mortals. Wow. So, in another ring, I get it. Existed in another realm beyond the ken of mortals, but it had been brought into attunement with earth when a forbidden act was accomplished. Thus, the bodies of mortals became susceptible to the influence of baleful places, of the baleful place. To this, a similar part of the other worlds, the wicked would be drawn when they passed through the grim gates of death. But Habarists taught a different conception of wickedness, when one where lack of effort, indolence, and indifference to duty and obligation, the taking of the easy path, were just as wrong as actual deeds of wickedness. He taught that men reach the true goal of life by transmuting love into true love. That true victory of gain only over the defeated bodies of their vanquished passions and bastard themselves. And so basically, you gotta deny yourself the pleasures in life in order to gain your soul. Like lust love into true love. That's crazy, right? Wow. These and many other things were taught by Habarists, but many of his teachings displeased the people of Caucasus, who were then as they were before Herthu's forefathers was laid away. So Habarists concealed many things from them and taught by simple tales, things within their understanding. He taught them the mysteries concerning the wheel of the year and divided the year into summer half and a winter half, while a great year circle of 52 years and 104 of which the circle of the destroyer. So it's another circle. It's another, wow. So with a great year circle of 52 years, so 1 year equals 52 years, 104 of which was the circle of the destroyer. He gave them the laws of weal and woe, and established the folk feast, and harvested the seeding tide. He taught them the ritual of Ulisidu, Dui, Dui, Elisidui, whatever. But Harboris instructed Hethru in ways of the other world. He taught him concerning the three rays from the central invisible sun, which manifest all things. Like, wait a minute, dog. Are you telling me these mothers got a hologram? We living in a hologram. The three rays from the central invisible sun, which manifests all things, upholding them in stability of form. Also concerning the oversoul, which fill everything in creation, as the soul self filled the mortal body. This soul self is, he declared, would develop from mortal sensitivity and feelings transmuted into divine sensitivity and feeling through the suppression of the baser instincts within the mortals. It was strengthened by the development of feelings of love between man and woman, and between these their kindred by the appreciation of beauty and devotion to duty, by the development of qualities that pertain to humans and not to animals. Herthru learned that the soul self is quickened by the soul substance outflowing from the Godhead, that the strong soul is transformed and molded to the soul's desire. But the weak soul is not its own master. It is fallible, unstable, and it is pulled into a state of distortion by its own vices. In the afterlife, there is an unbound joy for the entry of the noble soul. It will glow with splendor and stand out proudly. The mean soul of the wicked is dull-hued, twisted, and drab, and being drawn towards its own compatible state, it shrinks into the dark places. When Herthru had barely crossed the threshold of manhood, black-bearded spearmen began to ravage the borders of Caucasus, and Idalvar, king of that country, called his fighting men together. And when word came to Herthru, he prepared to depart. But Harboris bid him to stay a while, for he was unprepared for battle. Then Harboris prepared a strange fire with stones, unlike any fire seen before. And when it burnt low, he plucked out that which is called child of green flame, and he beat it out so it became a blade. This he fitted to a horned hand grip, and when it was edged and blooded, gave it to Hethru, saying, "Behold, this Lana, the bitter biter, faithful servant of he who strikes hard and true." Then he made a shield of wicker, covered with ox hide, and a cape of hide, which came down over his face and neck. So equipped, Hethru went to the camp of Idalvar, taking 8 fighting men with him. In those days, men fought with hand-thrown spears and clubs, with flung stones and sticks sharpened by fire and wave. But they did not close in the battle clash. So when Idalvar saw the battle blade of Hethru, he wondered, and it passed his understanding. But when he saw Hethru close on the battle line and the foemen fall before him, he was amazed. No man about the king could understand the making of such weapons, offspring of fire and stone, but Harboris made others, and Hethru became the king's right-hand man in marriage, right-hand man, and the daughter and the first hero of the noble race. The king offered Hethru his daughter hand in marriage, but Hethru declined, saying, "The days of my manhood are not yet filled." When the war-fulfilled days had passed, Hethru withdrew to the place where Harborus made the bright blade sword, and already he had taught the mysteries of their making to others, sealing their mouths with magic. But Hethru was less concerned with the weaponry of war than with the mysteries of life and battles of the spirit beset by mortality. So while his workmen drew bright blades from the thunderstones, Harborus taught Hethru and his battle brothers, and these were the things they learned from his mouth. Beyond God, there is an absolute which no man should try to understand, for it exists as always existed in a state beyond man's finite comprehension. It is as from this absolute that God, the ultimate in all perfection, was engineered. To create, God first visualized and thought, then he produced an outflowing wave of power, which in a manner of speaking solidified what might be called building stones. The outflowing power also produced a celestial hymn, which brought the building stones together in harmonious forms. This is cymatics. This is clearly cymatics, bro. Clearly. Harmony, you know what I'm saying? Songs, tunes. Think about it. Him which brought forth the building stones together in harmonious forms. So it is truly said that all creation is the harp of God, and it responds to his song and manipulations. It is an everlasting unfoldment. The voice of God can also be heard in the voice of his beautiful daughter, who endows all growing things with life and beauty. There is a divine purpose in creation which may be known only to the few. These knowledge is the key to all unanswered questions. Acquiring it is like the drawing back of heavy curtains, which have kept a room gloomy, half light. So all things suddenly become clear and distinct. He who gains this knowledge knows the grand secret, the answer to the riddle of the ages, and knows beyond a shadow of a doubt this divine purpose, and the divine secret concerning it is called Gwinkalava. Apart from Gwinkalava, God gains nothing from his creation except that as a being possessing infinite love and goodness, he must have something to receive the gift of love and respond to it. Even among mortal beings, who is there that could find satisfactory fulfillment in self-love? Also, he needs something wherewith he could contrast himself, some medium wherein he could perform, and this is creation. Creation is also, for mortals, the school of life, the training grounds for good godhood. There are 3 circles of reality, 3 realms, 3 stages of existence. Wow. Creation is also for mortals, the school of life, the training ground for godhood. There are 3 circles of reality, 3 realms, 3 stages of existence. They are heaven, where perfection visualized on earth may be realized, and desires and ideals materialized, where hard striven for the aspirations are attained. It is the place where all the property developed spiritual potential latent in man reaches maturity and fulfillment. Earth, the place of training, development, and preparation, the testing ground, the battlefield where men discovered that their true natures, when confronted by life's challenges, contest and contentions, where competition and controversy are the rule. It is here that aims to objectives are conceived and throughout for realization. It is here that the proper road must be wisely chosen. Then there is the realm of the misty horizon, the intermediate place, the place of spirits where those above can commune with those below, where free spirits wander within their limitations. These things, which Habarius taught in this far off days, have been rewritten and in transmission to the accord with our understanding, but it is unwise to voice them in these troublesome days, when the worlds become snares to entrap the unwary. This is very, very interesting. Now, Ilduvar desired to learn the secret of the bright blade, engineering the blades, the thunderstone, but no man who came with Habarius or labored for him would disclose any part of it, and the king was afraid to put them to the test. So having thought that the matter out, the king sent for his daughter and told them what he expected them to do. For he had devised a plan to learn the secret. Then he sent an invitation to Hethru and Habarius. When they arrived at the king's encampment, they found a great gathering in their honor, and the king's daughters favorably inclined towards them, one smiling upon Hethru's and other upon Habarius, who was at the age of hoary-headedness. The circle on top. Though at first Habarius was indifferent and wearied her, the king's daughter prepondered to him, encouraging even his follies, setting out to charm him with her wit and beauty. It was no great length of time before her womanly wiles ensnared the heart of Habarius, and though he was almost ripe for the sundering of secrets, the damsel's efforts taxed her, and the game became tiresome. So there came an evening when she could not endure his company, and in the midst of the merrymaking, when the ale bowls had made many rounds, and the sound of song and story was at its highlight, she slipped away with a young battleman who attended upon her father. Many who sat among the benches saw this and whispered one to another, nodding knowingly in the direction of Habarius, who was not aware, though he appeared to have drunk to his capacity. Habarius had learned to love the young woman, though he was sorely heart-smitten, but within himself he knew the tree of winter love bears only winter fruits. Yet he made excuses to himself for her, thinking perhaps it was just some girlishness, with no more weight than a floating feather, nothing of serious import. For it was true, the merrymaking was better suited to the natures of men than the natures of women. Maybe, he thought, it's just an innocent indiscretion. So when the day came to its fullness, and those who had made merry went heavily about their tasks, Habarius approached the king and asked for his daughter's hand in marriage. He said, "Your daughter Clara has delighted me with her winsome ways. She has charmed me with her gaiety and beauty. She has displayed much pleasure in my company. Surely I have not misread the signs." The king was not overpleased, for though he greatly desired to know the secret of the bright blade, he had not intended giving his daughter in hand to Habarius, but neither did he wish to offend him. Therefore he was wary in his reply, saying, It is the custom for any suitor for a highborn woman hand to be himself highborn and worthy, battle-bound blood. Yet such is my affection for you that I would not let even the custom become a bar to this marriage. And you may be a battle blood man among your own people, but let us not enter lightly into this thing, for the girl is still young, and it would be well if you establish yourself favorably with her. She will be a worthy wife indeed, for she is one who is ever ready to learn, one with an inquiring mind. Nothing gives her greater pleasure than the acquisition of knowledge. So the matter was left. Now some days later, Indalvar and his retinue, accompanied by Harthu and Habarius, went to the gathering place for a folk feast, some 5 days' journey away. People were accustomed to meeting here every 13 moons and celebrated the season. Wow. It's every 13, people were accustomed to meeting here every 13 moons to celebrate the season of fruitfulness, many coming a great distance. Besides the gathering place was a compound of far-famed seer and warlock called Gwendon, who in the fullness of the moon on the third night would prophesy events of the forthcoming year. Ildavar and those with him presented their gifts and took their places before the compound. Presently, Gwendon came out cloaked in the skins of wild dogs and with a horned crown and a skull-headed staff. He seated himself before a small fire into which he threw prescriptions, making a cloud of smoke which completely enveloped him. When this had drifted away, he had seemed to be asleep, but after a while he lifted his head, then raised himself up and started to prophesy. He talked a while of small matters, then told of dangers to the people, though enemies would bear down from the Northlands. He prophesied a great bloodletting, telling people they would be saved by a great war leader, a king knowing the secret of the bright blade, himself a war wielder of one. He exhorted the people to bestir themselves and prepare, wasting no time in finding their leader. No man among the people knew the mysteries of the bright blade except Hobberis, but he was not a man of battle, and Herthu was not a highborn among them. So, though they talked long, they talked in tangles, failing to resolve their issue. It was then decided each should go his own way, but they should meet at the same place again at the next full moon, when Gwendon would be able to help with their decision. When Indalvar returned to his encampment, he was no longer hesitant about the marriage of his daughter, ordering that it should take place forthwith. He stipulated that Harbor oh, so my man, he got the blade, he got the knowledge of the blade. They know who he is. They want to give, now he want to give him his daughter, because he thinking this is the guy that was prophesied about. He said, but he stipulated that Hobberis must initiate him and his sons into the mysteries of the bright blade immediately. This being agreed, arrangements for the marriage were put in hand. Hobberis and Clower were married, and Ildavar and his sons partially initiated into the mysteries of the bright blade, for the king was told it would take some time for the initiation to be completed. So when they next went into the meeting place, Ildavar was proclaimed the war leader, with his sons to follow according their ages, should he fall in battle. For Hobberis had spoken to Gwendon in secret, and the matters were so arranged that should the sons of Endavar fall, then Herthu would become the battle chief. The king and those with him returned to their home compound, where they were to prepare battlement. But Herthu was to go back to the gathering place and their trained fighting men in the battle tactics which brought them clashing into the foe. Now on their wedding night, when they had retired into their bower, Clara burst into tears and fell weeping with her head on her knees of Hobberis, confessing she was not a virgin and had deceived him, begging his forgiveness. Hobberis raised up and said, even the wisest of men becomes a fool when his heart blinds him to reason. The older the fool, the bigger the fool. He did not question her regarding love, for he knew she could not love him and deceive him. She had given her heart, with it her virginity, to another. Yet he made an excuse for her to himself, thinking that she had not willfully deceived him, but had acted out of the duty of her father. Also truly loving someone and wishing to demonstrate that love, she necessarily had to sacrifice the happiness and content, the self-respect of her husband to be. The choice had been hers to make. It is ever so. Harvest asked if her father had known how things were, and she said, he suspected, for I am not his daughter. Dang. Dang. What the hell? It is ever so. Harvest asked if her father had known how things were, and she said, he suspected, for I am not his daughter. He suspected, for I am not his daughter. Thus, Habris found himself tied to an unloving wife, for he chose to discard the custom of the people. He wondered, was she also to be an undutiful and unfaithful one? A woman reserved herself for her husband, and she does not. According to her marriage criteria, a woman reserved for marriage is one unlikely to be unfaithful. A woman easily come by before marriage is no less attainable afterwards. For if she says love is a criterion, then she measures by something unstandardized, which may figuratively vary from 1 inch to a mile. A man declaring his love may have seduction in mind or a lifetime of protective devotion. The marriage proposal determines the difference and establishes the intent. After the marriage, that's a good point. After the marriage, a king showed little concern for Habris, and for he kept Clara's young battleman in his retinue when he should have dispatched him elsewhere. Nor did Clara maintain the restraint of decorum which dignifies wifehood, except in their outward manifestation, which is no more than a deceptive crust disguising the love beneath. Thus Habris bore the shame of belittlement in the eyes of men, for Clara was furtively unfaithful. Damn, she was outwardly unfaithful. Habris visited Heathrow, and on his return told the king that he and his sons would now receive their final initiation. So having made preparation, they set off, accompanied by Clara, to the place of the thunderstones, this being a deeply cleft mountain wherein there was a large cavern from which flowed a river. Entering the cave, Habris told those with him to abide where they were, for only S.V.D.L and his sons and Clara would, oh shit. Sound like it's about to look bad. It sound like they about to be getting rid of. Oh shit. Okay, so he told his people to stay where they was at. He's like, y'all don't even come out. Don't worry about it. Be straight. There's my webcam. No clue. Okay. Wow. So they're about to kill these people, clearly. They set him up, they tricked him, and he hurt. So now, the Habris visited Heathrow, and on his return told the king that he and his sons would now receive their final initiation. So having made preparation, they set off and accompanied by Clara to the place of the thunderstone, this being a deeply cleft mountain wherein there was a large cavern from which flowed a river. Entering the cave, Habris told those with him to bid where they were, for only S.V.D.L and his sons and Clara were to accompany him into a place of initiation. A small cave entered through a long narrow passage closed off by a heavy door. and lit by a fire already prepared, a fire which burnt tardily with a blue flame. While length of time passed, those who waited without grew uneasy. But it was long before they approached the door. And when they did, their throats were seized. So they were affrighted and fled. And one among them died. Then those who knew the mysteries of the thunderstone came and cleared the way. And all within the cave were found dead. Habris did what had to be done. For though it was well for men to conform to the laws of men, there is a super law by which men who are men should live, and which sometimes decrees they must die. Harthu married the daughter of Ildevar, and they had a son who died in his 7th year. Ildevar's daughter died at childbirth. The invaders came and were defeated with a great slaughtering, and Herthru became the first king over all the people of Caucasus. This is a law book, man. As y'all see, I'm nowhere near it. So I'm gonna start back in a few hours. We're gonna start back at chapter 8 with Neva, and I'm only reading this because I can go straight to the shit, but I want to record it. I want to record it that is read, and since I'm going to read it again, I'm going to record it. But a lot of this stuff is like shadowing of the stories in the Bible. A lot of it shadows the stories in the Bible, you know, and we not even at the meat of it. This is in a human, this is in the man's forming, you know what I'm saying, forming or I mean the it's like, what is that called? It's not even at the peak yet. We still down here in the story. It's about to get heavy, you know what I'm saying? But I appreciate those who watch this. You know, don't forget to like it. I need the likes. I'm a growing channel. I mean, respect. You know what I'm saying? Rock out. Hook a brother up. Don't hate. Just give me a like. Let me get in the algorithm. Grow a little. But I will be back on in a few hours to get back into this reading, and get into this book. This book is called the Kolbrin Bible. It has a lot of interesting things in it. I haven't gotten to the destruction. I haven't gotten to the point to where it says that the giants built certain things and monsters and all of that. Anyway, Land Single is out.
Like the dude is literally on a panel watching women twerk.